Hello everybody, and welcome to another video here on the VEG channel on the YouTubes. I'm your host, Maxwell Smart. I wasn't supposed to tell you that because I'm a secret agent. I should have gave you my number, but cat's out of the bag. Today's video we are going to assemble a AF/RF signal tracer by BD Electronics, and I was asked if I could do this beta test for them, see how well the project goes together, how easy it is, and as far as working, deal with that another time. But right now we're just assembling the kit and see if a neophyte could follow along. So I was perfect candidate for that. So I got my package, have not opened it. I did peruse through the documentation. Excuse my notes on here, because part of this was not only proofing the project, but proofing the documentation, and so I got my notations on my notes. I went through the documentations, and they are really good, very well thought out and laid out, and fantastic language, and I don't think there should be an issue following along. So that is that. I do believe this kit is all inclusive. The owners of the company, BD Electronics, on their personal channel had gone through and tested the kit as it was in development. I haven't had a chance really to watch too many of the videos, so I'm a perfect candidate for that, not seeing what happened and just going with the way I think it should be, or per documentations I should say. There will be a link on the bottom of the video and in the title, or the heading of the video, so you'll be able to click on and follow that along. Actually, I'll just put the link down there in case it ever changes, then I can go back and change that link. I'm not going to go through step by step on placing every single component in this project. We'll do it in stages and go from there. To build this, the owners have thought of everything. They've included just about everything except for tools, soldering iron, solder. Every piece and part you need is in here. Now this is the first time I've seen this. So you're looking at this as I'm doing it. So you see we got it in a nice protective dust bag. I like that. The envelope that was shipped out is in a nice padded bubble envelope, and it survived going all the way across the country, which is a good thing because we know how postal carriers can be. Guess I should get in frame a little better so we could all see it. So as you can see, they've cut out the project box, have it ready to go. Oh, that is pretty awesome. They put a piece of tape on there so it just wouldn't explode in motion, and that is really top notch right there. Case is labeled. So I would imagine following along in the documentation, that should be pretty easy. We got a bag full of parts. A massive subwoofer speaker. And the board. This is nice professional made board, not made in the basement. It's really, really nice. And then the screen for the speaker. Tools that you're going to need is going to be your basic soldering iron, solder. You may need a wick or some kind of desoldering stuff, wire strippers, cutters, and dikes. Some basic knowledge you'll need. Basic knowledge of soldering, unsoldering. If that is something you're unfamiliar with, don't know how to do, you just grab you a couple pieces of wire, put them together, and solder them. There's a whole plethora of YouTube videos that you can go watch, and that'll also help guide you along. You may need a voltometer in case there's any troubleshooting steps that you may or may not need. In the documentation, they had marked out the resistors and all the components, and so you really don't need to know what all the colors on the bands mean or represent. There are plenty of color code charts available on the internet if you do want to know. However, they sat down and wrote down each band, and so all you got to do is cross-reference that. One thing I like to do personally, and this is also mentioned in the documentation, is to go through your parts and make sure we have all the parts, or at least familiarize yourself with the parts. What I kind of like to do personally is I like to lay all the parts out, resistors with resistors, diodes with diodes, etc., etc. That way when the parts list comes up and tells me what I need next, it's just really, really easy to grab and move on. So let me go ahead and get this all organized, and we'll come back. Here you can see I have all the parts laid out, real easy to grab. This is how I like doing it when I put together kits. It's nice to do it this way instead of have it all in a big pile and then dig through it as you go. This way it's real easy to go. Have the board mounted into a board holder. If you have one, this will make things a lot easier to work with as opposed to putting it on the table or holding it in hand, although that method will work just fine. This is an item that you could buy off of eBay, fairly inexpensive. So you're getting into the hobby, and doing a lot of kit building, something you might want to invest in. In the manual, they want you to hold on to your leads that you clip and save them later, and that's a really good practice to get into. As you can see, this is my collection right here, and these jumpers do come in handy for just that. You know, you need little runs of wire to go from there to there, or something to clip a lead onto or something, that's really great, because then you don't have to go hunting for wire and stripping and, you know, doing it that route. Just a little quick down and dirty, done. And here's a closer look at the board. You can see everything is laid out really nice. Silk screening is good. It's very easy to identify where things go. So if you're an advanced user or a advanced hobbyist, then it'd be real easy for you to just move along a little bit faster without going to the documentation as much. And here's a close-up look of the back. You can see, just as the front, everything's laid out really nice. The solder points look really good, so we shouldn't have any issue assembling this kit. And earlier I made mention how easy the owners made the documentation. As you can see right here in this example, it's pretty straightforward, easy to work with. Okay, so step one, they want you to find resistor 1, which is a 100K, and the colors on that are brown, black, yellow, and gold. And so I'll just go through my parts that I've got laid out here. And so there's our first resistor. You're going to find that you got this tape on either end. That just pulls right off. And this is going to go into R1 here on the board. Which is right here. And as you can see, it's labeled not only by part number, but also by part value. And so that's really, really great. That also makes it nice down the road if you lose the documentation and you ever have to do repair on this. You know what the value is, and it's all off-the-shelf parts. Easy repair down the road. So now the next thing they want you to do is bend the legs over as such. Because what's going to happen is you're going to stab it in the hole. I like doing the doing it this way. Personal preference, however you want to do it. Kind of add an angle here so that way you can see what I'm doing and stab it in the hole. So we got that one in, and while holding that down, what you want to do is come over here and just kind of bend the legs over as such. And as you see, that holds the resistor in place. I'm going to go through the rest of the document following what it wants. I'm not going to do all of this on film, on camera, because they plan on doing their own documentation. This video, I guess, is essentially to help them out, see how easy it is for me. I'm going to go ahead and stop the camera. I'm going to populate the board a little bit, and then I'll come back. I have all the resistors in place, soldered down. You can see there I got a couple of the bodies lifted a little higher off of the board. And what happened was I didn't, when I pushed them in, I didn't pull them tight so I could pull the legs tight. And when I soldered, they just hung. And now they're going to live like that. You could heat them back up and smash them down if you'd like. I'm okay with them up. So the next thing to do is we're going to be putting in all the disc capacitors. And it's going to be the same procedures as putting in the resistors. You just follow through. They'll call out the values. They'll tell you where to put them. You grab them and put them in. And then just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the capacitors in, the disc capacitors, and we'll come back. I have all the disc capacitors and the box capacitor put in. Went off with not a hitch. And that's looking really, really good. At this point, I will say that assembling this kit, it's extremely easy. Not a lot of thought that you have to put into it. I really like the fact that they have included, a dual checkpoint. Not only the part placement number, but also the part value. It makes it really easy. And in the documentation, again, they've got it where you don't have to do a lot of thinking. You don't need a lot of heavy electronics know-how, knowledge to understand what it is you need to do next. I do like that. It's pretty well laid out. The one thing at this point that's kind of tripping me up, and it's not necessarily the document. I guess maybe it's a document and myself. They have, so far I've noticed for the resistors and the capacitors, they've got in the sentence what it is you're supposed to do next. And what I'm finding myself, and this is just, probably habit of working on electronics, you build up your own workflow. And so for me, I keep finding that I want to look down into the bulleted points to see what my next step is, and really not paying too much attention to the layout. I am, but it's a fight between good versus evil, I reckon. So, but so far so good. So the next thing is we're putting in the electrolytic, and then it looks like we're going to do transistors, switches, BNC, and the battery, and then working our way to the speaker. Let me get the capacitors, the electrolytics populated, and we'll go from there. I have the kit assembled and put into its box. It went in there really well. Had no real issues. The only issue I had was with me, and not necessarily with the box or the instruction set. It was more me wanting to, move forward and just start stabbing things into place. So I had to keep reeling myself in from that. Now I'm at a point of testing the device to see how it works. So I have a 9-volt cap coming from my power supply. One thing I did forget to do was I forgot to put the jacket on here after I solder that. I made the executive decision to just not unsolder, but go ahead and put some heat shrink tubing on there. Jerry rigged, I know. That's okay. It'll work just the same. I wasn't going to tear that apart. So, error on my behalf. Again, not again, but the document is going to tell you to pay attention, read them, check them off as you go. And here it is, the finished product. Went together pretty easy. The only slight issue I had assembling it was the speaker. There's washers on the backside that sandwich the speaker down between the grill and the face, and I had a little issue trying to get those to line up. It took a few minutes, but I got it, no issues. That was really the only problem I had. And one other issue, well, it's not really an issue, but I don't know what you call it, was I did not get stickers to put on the case. The only sticker I got was that right there that came with the bag. That's okay. I got a sticker gun. I can make my own. So now the next thing is to try it. Haven't tried it, and let's do that now. I got power. I think the switch needs to be up for AF, and I'm going to plug this. I got it plugged into my audio generator, my B&K. I got it at 400 hertz. At 50 millivolts. So for those of you with headphones or other noise, here we go. And as you could hear, hopefully you could hear it, a 400 hertz tone. Let me increase that to 100 millivolts peak to peak. And then I'll go 1K. So it definitely works. Let me drop back down to 50. And microphone. Me. So hopefully you could hear that. And just out of curiosity, let's take that down to 10 millivolts peak to peak. And I know the microphone's not picking it up. I could just barely hear it, but it's there. So very cool. Now I'm going to switch this over to RF, and we'll try it on the RF side. Let me turn this off. And we're going to go to AM. And we're going to put that at, the tone is going to be 400 hertz, because I don't like 1,000. That hurts my ears. We'll go to 30% modulation. Oops. And then we will go to, let's go to 1,000 hertz. And we're going to take this down to 1 kilohertz, or 1 volt peak to peak. We'll put this into RF mode, and we'll turn this up. And we're going to change the frequency to 60 hertz. And it definitely works. Let's go to 10 hertz. And then let's just take it on down to 1 hertz. Impressive. Now, I don't know the spec of the IC chip, so I don't know what the range of this is supposed to be. This one might be really high. This one might actually hurt your ears. I'm going to go to 1 meg. So I've got that on 1 meg, volume down. Let's go ahead and turn this up. And definitely don't hear anything. So let's go to 50,000 hertz. This is way above human hearing. But we hear it. Let's go 20,000 is high. So let's go to 100,000. And we still hear it at 100,000. Let's go to 200,000. It's just barely there. I could hear it. And I think the microphone hears it as well. Let's go to 250,000. Just barely there. And 300,000. It's hanging in there. I don't think the mic's picking it up, but I'm definitely hearing it. Let's go to 500,000. Oops. That was 500 hertz. 500,000. There we go. Help to hit the right button. The audio is just barely there. I could just barely hear it. The mic, I'm sure, is not picking it up. But if I go to the upper switch, I can definitely hear it. So I wonder if it's picking up the 400 hertz tone off of the for the modulation. So let's prove that theory and see if that is indeed the audio. So we'll drop it down to 300. And there we go. And here you see we have it kind of sort of used the way it was intended. Got it plugged in to this radio using it as an external speaker. And it works in either AF or RF. And that will bring this video to conclusion. I believe this device is going to do exactly as it advertised. It sounds good, and be looking forward to using it. I have a few projects coming up that I just might have a need for, so it will be nice to have. I could definitely recommend it at this point in time. Anyway, thanks for watching. Do appreciate it. And we will catch you in the next one. Take care.